Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So this is gonna be a new series that I'm trying out, and whether or not I continue this really just depends on how this video does. This video series will be made in collaboration with ProGuides.com, and they'll be helping greatly with the editing. So make sure to check them out in the link down below. The point of this video series is to go over the patch notes, do the work for you, tell you the information that you need to know going into this patch. I'll let you know what you need to watch out for and what you do not, give you my thoughts on various nerfs and buffs and even new things implemented, and essentially I want to make it easy for you guys to transition into this new patch. And to make things more interesting, for some of the big changes I'll be talking about per patch video, I'll give it either a rating of overpowered, which means I'm predicting that this champion is something you should really watch out for in this current patch, or a rating of underpowered, meaning that this champion went from being very strong to probably something you shouldn't worry about. So if you enjoy this and want me to do this per patch notes release, definitely hit that like button and let me know if there's anything you think I can improve. But let's not waste any more time and go right into what I consider to be the big changes of patch 6.4. So let's start things off with Ahri and the change to her charm. It will no longer stop dashes in their tracks. This without question is a nerf to Ahri. I made a video talking specifically about this that I do recommend checking out, but for the most part I don't agree with this change. Using her charm to stop a dash mid-dash is not something that's easy to do, and only very experienced Ahris will be able to pull it off. And if you're able to pull off such a feat and counter a champion like maybe LeBlanc's W coming at you, you should be rewarded. So this shouldn't affect the majority of Ahri players, but the people that dedicated the time to really learn the ins and outs of this champion will be hurt. I'm not giving Ahri a rating whatsoever because I don't think she'll be overpowered or underpowered, and the majority of Ahri players should still feel very strong with her. Up next we have Fiora, and this is most definitely going to be a nerf. In my opinion, this is very justified because Fiora is known to be one of the best top laners at the moment. Whether it's in solo queue or competitive play, she is an absolute monster and beast. Making her W cooldown higher means that you cannot spam her W ability and you really have to pick the perfect moments to use it. While having her E ability start on the cooldown only after the second auto attack means that you essentially have to go all in for the damage and you can't really stall, which in turn also opens a bit of counterplay for the person facing Fiora. But I don't think she'll be underpowered with these changes either, because the main thing that's really annoying is her Q. The cooldown on this ability if it hits an enemy champion is insanely low, and it opens up a lot of plays that she can do with her ultimate. Even though this will definitely hit Fiora decently hard, I still feel like she will be more or less a solid champion. But unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the next champion we'll be talking about, Gangplank. So they made it much more difficult for Gangplank to just stack up on gold using his Q to power farm. This alone would have been a pretty decent change already, but they went the extra step and did a pretty big hit to his E. Now obviously Gangplank's kit heavily revolves around utilizing his barrels effectively, and being able to have a lot of barrel stacks ready to go is very important, because again you have many different options to consistently perform an action. But his E is now limited to 3 barrels at all levels. So what this should mean now is Gangplank should be much more difficult to play, and you really have to pick and choose the barrels you use in a team fight. Prior to this change, if you were to make a mistake with GP's barrels, I mean you always have maybe 2 or 3 more ready to go. But that is no longer the case, so you really have to make sure that every barrel you use in a team fight counts. So without question this is a nerf, and he'll be the first champion I'll be giving the underpowered rating to. I still feel like in the right hands he will be quite deadly, but it is going to be very difficult to play him now in team fights again, because you just cannot make as many mistakes. Now here's the change I'm personally a little excited about, because it is on an assassin, Katarina. It's a very quick change, but it's also a very good one. So without question this is a buff, and a pretty good one at that. Her Q will deal full damage to every single target it now hits. And to add the cherry on the cake, the ability power ratio of the second part of the Q has been slightly increased. This will not only make Katarina's laning phase better because you can finally use it to harass opponents hiding behind minions, but her teamfight might be slightly better since now you can throw the Q within a teamfight while you're waiting for the right time to initiate with your full combo, and it will deal respectable damage to every champion hit. I'm gonna give her the very first overpowered rating because I'm expecting Katarina to once again rise up from the ashes. Following this, we have a very interesting change to Rumble's E. To me this is quite a big one because it will change for the most part how Rumble plays. So now instead of being forced to use your second E ability within the first few seconds of using the first one, it works on an ammo type system very similar to something maybe like Teemo's ultimate. Not only does this give you good options as to when you want to actually throw out the ability and not forcing you into the time constraint, but very good Rumble players will be able to abuse this and change the way they overheat or get into the danger zone. So this is a buff, but unfortunately for Rumble, there is a very small nerf where his slow duration now goes from 3 seconds to 2. This will definitely not be underpowered, but I don't think it'll be overpowered either, but I do expect it to be a fairly strong pick. However, on the flip side, here's the change I'm expecting to be quite good. Here's a pretty good buff to Jungle Shen. His E ability now affects monsters, including the Rift Scuttler. In my opinion, this is actually quite fantastic. He has the damage amplification from his Q, he has the damage avoidance on his W, he has the shield from his passive, which for the most part gives him some fairly good sustain in the jungle. But now that his clear speed got buffed in such a way, I feel like Jungle Shen might actually be quite strong. He'll be able to kill the Rift Scuttler very easily, since remember, hard CC on the Rift Scuttler reduces its armor and magic resistance by a lot. So I'll be giving him the overpowered rating as well, and I'm definitely expecting to see some Jungle Shen within this patch. Here's a change I wasn't sure if I should consider it a big change or a small change, but I decided to call it a big one. Sivir's W ability will cause every single ricochet attack to critically strike as long as the first and initial auto attack was a critical strike. I'm very tempted to call this buff overpowered, but I'm not 100% sure. The reason I want to call it overpowered is because getting critical strike stats on ADCs at the very moment is not difficult whatsoever. In fact, it's actually quite easy. And if her ricochet were to crit on 3 or maybe even 4 targets within a team fight, that could be quite strong. But on the flip side, this buff has absolutely next to no effect on the laning phase. This one is definitely a little bit risky to call it overpowered or not, but I want to go ahead and say it's not, and it's just a fairly strong pick. Now the next big change I want to talk about is actually an item, Muramana. This is going to be a buff and a nerf, and I'll tell you why. So the change is actually quite simple. It now no longer is a toggle type item. This item will auto toggle on whenever you're attacking champions, but will be considered off if you're attacking anything but champions. So they're making the item do the work for you. Now if you're a new player or you're not really mechanically advanced, this is a fantastic change. But if you're a player in the higher elo, if you're a very skilled player and have great mechanics and you really like to toggle this item yourself, this is a bad change. Because now when attacking champions, you're absolutely forced to use the passive that increases your damage while taking your mana. Now, I mean, sure, if you're below 20% mana, it won't work on champions either, but I mean, it's still not that good. A very skilled player will be able to use it on and off effectively and use it in the best of situations within a team fight. Because there are going to be certain times in a team fight where you simply just don't want it to be on because you need the mana. So it's a fantastic buff to newer players or not mechanically skilled players, but it's a big nerf to mechanically skilled players. And then we have Iceborne Gauntlet, which also got a nerf and a buff. It just depends on how you're looking at it. If you're someone that plays tanks or bruisers, it got buffed and you should be very happy. If you play blue Ezreal and that's your absolute favorite thing to do, you should be very sad. The AoE slow on the ground no longer lingers. You need even more armor now for the size ratio to be actually something useful. And for the most part, this item is being used on champions that should have been used to begin with and not really on blue Ezreal. And the final big change I'll talk with you guys about is Exposed Weakness, a new mastery. So now you can choose between the new Exposed Weakness, Feast, or Double-Edged Sword. This is a really good one because if you're playing a support type champion, maybe like Lulu mid or maybe even Lux mid, this will work with your team because essentially those champions are made to support their team while having a lot of damage as well, and you're helping your team do even more damage. But I'm also predicting support champions to be taking this as well because I think it'll help them quite a bit. So now that we got all of the major changes out of the way, I want to quickly go over the smaller changes throughout this patch and just give you a very brief rundown on what I think. So first off, we have Ashe, where her Q ability got buffed and now the stacks no longer fall off as quickly. This will make Ashe a little more consistent, and I feel like this might slowly bring her back in the meta. Then we have Caitlyn, where she also got some pretty decent buffs. I was very tempted to include her in the big changes section, but I decided not to. But her W's bonus damage on her headshot on trapped targets is now flat rather than percent. This is a really good buff because it'll make her laning phase much better. And I feel like this is what it should have been to begin with. Now, as if Ezreal hasn't got hit quite hard this patch already, he also got his ultimate increased by a whopping 40 seconds. This change alone is not the biggest thing in the world, but obviously his ultimate is not going to be as spammable combo. For the most part though, nothing completely major. Then we have Kog'Maw, who's been terrorizing games recently with a base attack speed nerf. My only question is this even enough? I don't feel like this is enough, but we'll see how it goes. And here's another example of a nerf that probably is nowhere near enough. The range on Lucian's ultimate got reduced by 200. As someone that really enjoys playing Lucian, I don't think this is all that bad. I mean, for the most part, Lucian is a brawler type ADC. He is going to be in the middle of the fight, doing a bunch of damage, dashing around, and being very annoying. So I don't really expect this nerf to hit him too hard. And then we have Ryze, who got absolutely gutted last patch. But Riot is throwing him a little bit of a bandage here by increasing the damage on his Q. This is an ability you're maxing on Ryze first, so by rank 5 you're getting an extra 40 damage, which I actually think is quite good. But is it enough to bring Ryze back up into the meta and to what he once was? Probably not, but it's still a fairly good change. And God bless, we finally have a bit of Jhin buffs. So aside to his movement speed increase and the health regen, his 4th shot on towers will now be a mini crit and a very good change in my opinion for his E ability. Every single target that walks into your E will now get a mark on top of them, not just the champion that activated the trap. This is definitely a step in the right direction for Jhin. The nerfs to Udyr, who's considered to be probably the most overpowered jungler at the moment, are I don't think anywhere near what he needs. But when you combine the fact that Runic Eko's also got nerfed a bit with the move speed, maybe it is just barely enough. Moving over to Victor, here's a change I have absolutely no idea why it was made. His E ability got nerfed to the point where it just simply deals less damage at the higher ranks. Why they decided to nerf Victor is absolutely beyond me. This champion was no means overpowered, and I feel like they're essentially just beating him while he's already down. Definitely disagree with this change. Then we have Runic Ekos, which is pretty much notorious in the jungle at the moment for just being very overpowered. The base movement speed offered got reduced by 3%, which is an also indirect nerf to Udyr. A fairly good nerf because, I mean, people running around at maximum speed all the time without really being able to stop them is absolutely obnoxious. And the final change that's also quite a good buff is Warlord's Bloodlust. It'll now offer you more lifesteal based on your missing HP. And if you're missing more than 80% HP, it'll give you 20% bonus lifesteal, which is quite good. But I personally still feel like it is a niche type mastery, and I feel like Fervor of Battle will still be the one to go for on most auto attacking champions. But there's definitely going to be a handful of champions that will make use of Warlord's Bloodlust quite effectively, namely Tryndamere and Olaf. And there you guys have it, patch 6.4. Hopefully I told you everything you need to know about this patch. You have an idea on what to expect now, what to watch out for, what not to watch out for, what to maybe even play. Again, let me know down below what you think about this type of series and if you want me to continue. And you can also show your support by hitting that like button. Also, big shoutouts once again to Pro Guys for helping me edit this video. It truly is a big help. They've also just set up their own YouTube channel that you should check out if you want more information about League of Legends. But thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.